So I think when you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, what's tested, untested here, you have to be aware that you just tested the top of a weekly. So you're going to be targeting something relative to that. Like you're going to be targeting this down here. So when you can't say, oh, rewind this and this is the next ladder point confirmed. So this is 10,026 or whatever this level that was hit, 10,000. We're just going to call it 10,000. This is the highest Bitcoin might ever be in its lifetime. Now, could it go up to 50 or 100K? Yes. But when it was 14,000, that's the highest it was ever going to be. When it was 12,000, that's the highest ever going to be. When it was 11,000 and 10,005 and 10,008 or whatever, these are the highest points it will ever be until it breaks that long-term trend. So when you're looking at the exterior time frame and you're seeing this is possibly the highest we'll ever see Bitcoin go again for the next 20 years or forever until it dies, this is a reality. I'm not saying this is what's happening. It's not my prediction. But this is a reality because this is the perpetual ladder down that it's still respecting from here to here and back to here and blah, 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 right? And then there's that forever trend that's been existed that's basically created a 20K. This is it, man. So when you're looking at that, I don't think when you've just touched the top, you can say, like, I think you have to target something lower. I think at a minimum, you have to start targeting this range, which it did. It targeted the backside here to see if it can hold. Because the scenario it's creating is that, okay, what if it does hold this backside level for long enough, right? Like, what if this backside does hold and it just continues to hold here and until that trend is broken? At that point, you can go over this marquee right here and you can break out of your ladder. But for now, when you've just tested the highest point you will ever see again, possibly forever, because there's no guarantee Bitcoin's going up to those numbers and levels, right? This thing could go down to $500. It's possible. It's stocks, man. It could go to zero and hypercash could take over. Not likely, but possible, yes. So when you're looking at this target being hit here, I don't think you can, like, that's why I'm picking these levels down here, because it's going there and even further below. Like, why can't it go to 5,800 right now? It absolutely can. Now, this kind of, there's something here. Like you can see it on the charts. There's something there. There's something here. Like you can see where these levels are. So this is like, we can see. Here's a range somewhere right there. That candle low right there. There's a range somewhere. So we have to dissect like what happened here to make sense of what makes sense, right? And then same with here. Like, okay, where's the actual levels here and where's the actual levels here? Because those are your two ranges in the move on the bottom. So when you just hit the very top of your range and you are pulling back, I don't think I would necessarily be looking to catch a knife until at a minimum we targeted the backside. A minimum of a backside, because it's going to range test 2 times on the next time frame down. We're just working forward back, right? Like we don't have anything here, and we're not instantly going to snap down to 5,800. But what we can do is we can go to our next time frame, just like when we go to the 4 hour to the 1 hour and say, okay, what is making sense here? And aha, we have it here. So I would not be looking to take any longs there until we're getting kind of to this region. And I think you have to also define what trade this is. Like, we have trigger points and those define exits on the trades we get into. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So trigger points can be like, okay, this is the line. Like we have a trigger point. This is the line between scalping to a target and possibly being in a position trade or a swing trade, right? Or even just maybe a little longer term scalp. Maybe you're still within the confines of what's technically a scalp, but you want to let it breathe because you hit a target and whatever. So that becomes the trigger point, becomes the defining line between what your trade manifests into once you're in it is a trigger point. But what your targets are catching knives, you still have to work backwards from that, like or backwards in time frames, or from the front side of the chart, as I like to call it. You still have to justify it on the higher time frames. Like these are very justifiable targets, simply because we just hit the top of a weekly. So where would we even begin to start looking for a long? Well, there is nothing on the weekly, and we just held a weekly right here, which is just the daily right here. So if we simply just went backwards, we would find some pretty juicy targets, backside, front side. If those are our targets, if we start getting to, here, let me delete some of these brush strokes because we can't really see, can we? Here, let me do that. Delete all these brush strokes. If you are looking at this and you go too down in time frame, I think you're just missing what's happening in the move. Like I think you're simply just missing. Like even here in the hourly would be, I think actually the correct play here is the backside. Now that I'm looking at it, did the hourly get filled? Yeah, it was perfect, but it's just like a slightly better piece of the range of the backside. I don't think this is what held it up. I think like I might as well delete that level and just say this was the backside that held it up, because This backside is a lot more damning as a 1-2 range test than a 1 hour that's floating there. Just like a 15-minute that's floating there doesn't really make sense, does it? When we look at where this thing was and where it could possibly go. Right? Like this just, to me, doesn't, like, whatever that 8150 level is, just it's just simply way too high. It's simply way too high. And the reality is now we've already tested the backside. Whether BitMEX likes it or not, we've already tested this backside. We've already tested this backside. Again, whether BitMEX likes it or not, we already have. So our next piece of this range is going to be down in here. And even when we were justifying this next piece of this trade, so when we were here in like, let's talk about the trade that we took even, right? So fine, that's been tested. We can just simply put this here. We were at 97, whatever it was there, and we used our trend. I believe it was like something like this to justify that trade. I believe it had a swing low right there, and we were at 8,900, or we was at 9,700, weren't we? I think we did something like this, and we were up at 9,700. Like I would pose the same question, and I would say, okay, here's the daily. Oh, that's right. We were right here. And we said, okay, the daily is breaking. So if we know the daily is breaking, because this is the day we were trading and we were at 97 something, we were trying to get 97.50, and 97.20 was the last level it hit. And then, so fine, we were here, and there was no hard closes. So we went to the 6 hour, and there was one hard close here. So we got some pretty accurate information to say, okay, this is what's going to dump the daily. Like what's logical here? So even here, like we said this was a 10% trade. So from 97, we'll try to get this as close as we can. 97.20 is the last level it hit. Where was that 10% justification, right? Well, it was right here. Like this is how we justified that trade, right, to here. And we said there's a 10% piece, right? And there's a 6% piece. And that 6% was, oh, no, sorry. This was the piece that we had, that 10% maybe. It's hard with this magnet tool. Let me take that off. Because I remember we were at 97.20, and we said there's a 6% piece and a 10% piece. Or maybe it was 11. So this was the final target. That's true. This was the final target. And then we also had this, and then we also had a piece of the range inside of here. So we had kind of 3 marks. So this is the same thing. It's like, what makes sense, right? You're right here in the moment. You're going to hit this level. Longer term, you can go after this. Even longer term, you can go here. And that's that 12-hour level that we hit, by the way, right there. So actually, when we took this trade, it was the same thing we're talking about now. It's like, what makes sense? Right? Like this is the top of the range, what makes sense, and the bottom of its range, right? Like the price, the profit cap. The profit cap is what makes sense. So if we simply go back to this weekly and we say, okay, we touched this, right? We just touched this level. Like what makes sense here? Like where's the profit cap? If we're willing to stay in this for weeks and we shorted that level, our profit cap is like this. From here. Yeah, I would say right here. That's our profit cap. And then if you justify it even lower time frame, your profit cap is from, like, that would be like the first profit cap. The next profit cap from here would be down to here, which is also a 1-2 range test of here. So this signifies the same piece of the move. So 22% or the backside at 20%. What would you profit cap this at? Well, you could profit cap it at 22%. That's fine. That would be your final target. But if it hits this and bounces, like, that should have been on your radar, because this is a 1-2 range test of the same thing. So we did the same thing when we looked at this trade here. And we took that 97.20 right here off of, whatever this was, and we had been looking at this trade, and there was 97.50 in here, whatever it was. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Whatever it was here, we did the same thing. We just simply profit capped it, and that's our range. So yeah, again, when you look at this level, this 81.50, it really doesn't make sense, does it? Like it's just kind of way too high, way too high. It's the top of a weekly, the very top of the range that gets hit on BitMEX, and the top piece of that range. But again, I'm not trading on BitMEX, and I would not have taken that trade. At a minimum, I would have been, okay, this is the greediest point of that. And then there's a backside here, and there's some kind of other level in here. There's a 1 hour. Again, I don't even think I would have justified the 1 hour, but this is justifiable. Your profit cap from here to here is the maximum, right? From this point here to this point here. Like, where's your profit cap, right? Yeah, this is justifiable. This is not as a profit cap. That is not justifiable off the top of a move, a 15-minute level. It can't be. It can't be. It's still got room to move if that's where it's stopping. And it actually did. It went after the backside. So my profit cap would have been like this. Always start from the highest time frame down and say, okay, what's happening in the move? Where can this thing go? The higher we catch, the bigger part of the move, the bigger it has room to move down. So if I was catching this is a ladder point from back here. So that's important to know. Again, it's just, this could possibly be the highest price Bitcoin ever goes forever. This might have been the top, boys. I don't know. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it's very possible it could have been. This might have been the top. So if that's the top, the profit cap exists down here, right? So you're either still in the trade because a trigger point hasn't been hit, and that trigger point would be like this. Magneto's not on. So I'd either still be in the trade because my trigger wasn't hit, or I would have taken a target below. But if my target's down here, I would still be in this trade until this trigger's hit. Now that's a pretty crazy trend, so I don't necessarily think I would have. Yeah, right here would be my target, or this one right here. But this for sure, because I know there's a weekly range right here. This is absolutely a target. And no, I don't think I would be in this trade. Like, you drop this fast to a backside and 20%. I mean, I would have used a trigger point to get me out of this thing. Like this one here. There to there. Trigger point like that. But you would have given ample opportunity to exit on that. Like, lots of opportunities to exit. Yeah. Well, it's also the ladder, the long-term ladder. It's not just a weekly hold, right? Like it's also the long-term ladder that's been holding this move down. And it got held again. So, you know, my profit cap would have been here. Looking at this, it would have been here. I might have put it down here somewhere, but then I would have adjusted it to here, because this range is going to get hit for sure, right? Like this range, out of these two ranges, this will bounce it. This piece will bounce that range, right? So then I would have just profit capped it to some daily right here. So, you know, my profit cap would have been here to here. Because it's the other part of the weekly range. Like, there's kind of two parts of this weekly range. Like if this is going to test, you're going to have two tests on this. You're going to have two tests on this. You can see the range right there. Like, you can see it when it kind of comes down here, when it goes up and then comes down. You can see it develops its own range right here. It has two ranges here that it's going to go after. It has this range and this range. Then I would go to my daily and I would say, oh, here's one, here's the next one. So those would be like my two. If I wanted to make big money because I caught the absolute top, those would be my two points. And both of those are represented by this backside. So this backside is very justifiable as a trade. Like, whether it goes backside, front side, backside, front side, backside, front side combination range test to get here. This is going to be the one for both of these. This is the one. This can be a two. This can be a two. This is also going to have this two. Will also have another number one in here somewhere, or possibly right here, right? So it'll have its own number one, which is, you know, a 1, 2, 3 of the entire range on a bigger time frame, right? Because this is just this. You go back to the weekly, you're going to have backside, front side combination. So you have a 1, 2, 3 of the bigger range test. So that's something we haven't talked about, but something I don't think we really need to talk too much about. Right? The bigger time frame. That's why we have backside, front side, and a backside front side combination level with a possible front side to that backside front side. So possibly 4, but really on the larger time frame, it becomes three tests of the larger range, but 2 tests of the current range, if that makes sense. Because this current range will have a 1, a 2, right? Which is just a 1 for the larger time frame, which is going to have a 1 and a 2 right here on this front side right here. So this is going to be possibly the 1, which is going to move here, which is 3 tests of this range. But really, it's 1 test here and 1 backside larger test and 1 front side larger test. This just has 2 smaller 2s in it. And one of those 2s is this front side, right? And then the second 2 is this backside. And this 2 can't be developed here until we have the backside front side hit. So it's like a 1, 2, 3 on the larger time frame. But if you're in the current time frame, there's 2 tests of a range. But then 3 on the larger time frame, which makes sense because the smaller time frame in front of it is going to have 2 tests, which amount to 1 test of the bigger time frame. Does that make sense, or am I being confusing? I can explain it again if it's confusing. Okay, so if we have we have backside, front side, we know that for sure. Like, okay, here's a backside on the daily, here's the front side of the daily. Okay, so there's 2 tests here. We also know that there's a backside, front side combination test. Okay. So what's going to happen is you have on the smaller time frame, without me going to it, you're going to have number 1, number 2. Okay. That is going to be on the larger time frame, 1 test. So there's 2 tests inside of 1 because you can't see those tests on the larger time frame. But what you can see is 1, right, on the smaller time frame, 2, and then 3, right? Because you're going to have backside, front side, backside, front side combination. That backside, front side combination is the 1-2 range test of the smaller time frame. So when there's a 1 and a 2 on a smaller time frame, that ends up being 1 test on the larger time frame. So you actually have 3 tests because those 1 and 2 are making up of a smaller time frame like this. So 1 right there. Let's delete these brush strokes. So you're going to have 1, 2 right there, which is just 1 test of the backside on a larger time frame. So that's one test of a large time frame. The backside, front side, right here, backside, front side is also a 1. And then the front side is a 2. So it actually has what, like I said, it has 4 tests, but really it's only 3 because you have the smaller time frame backside, the smaller time frame front side, which on the bigger time frame is 1 test. On that same time frame, you're also going to have a backside, front side right here, which is the 3rd test, and then the front side is the 4th test, which when you go to the larger time frame is only 2 tests. So on a larger time frame, we can say there's 3 tests of a level: a backside, front side combination level, and a front side level. So there's 4 tests because there's a backside, front side for both. But the first number 1 and 2, which exist here, ends up being 1 test. The backside, front side combination level, which is the next level after this number 1 gets hit, is the 2nd test. And then the front side is the 3rd test. So it's 4 tests, but it's 4 tests on a smaller time frame, 3 on the larger, but the larger time frame is only 2 final tests. So once number 1 and 2 gets hit right here, like 1 and 2, and also you have backside, front side, this makes up of 1 total, right? This makes up of the 2nd test. This makes up of the 3rd test. But on the larger time frame, it's simply just 2 tests. But these 2 tests combine and make it 1 test on that larger time frame. So you have 3 tests, and that's why we have a backside, a front side, and a backside, front side combination, because that backside, front side combination, wherever that exists in these middle candles, makes up of the completion of the backside, front side tests here, and the first test of the next block. So 1 and 2 right here, these have a 1 and 2. This makes up of the first test of that block. So it gives it 3 tests, but 4 backside, front side, like a total of 4 levels. So backside, front side 2 times, right? But one of those backside, front side combination levels is just that, is a backside, front side combination. So where it makes up of 2 independent tests, one of those turns into the backside, front side. So it's actually 3 tests, but it's 4 tests total, right? So 1, 2, 1, 2. This ends up being 1. This ends up being a 2nd test. This ends up being a 3rd test. On the larger time frame, you see how those 2 make up of 1 test? On the larger time frame, this is just the 1 test of a backside. And then there is like this. So if 1 and 2, like this, 1 and 2 right here and here, make up of 1 test, those 2 levels are simply back testing 1 time. Once that 1 and 2 is complete, that's the backside. And then you're going to have the final front side level. And you're going to, so we're going to call this the number 2. So this is the front side. This is the backside. So that's 3 so far. What's going to protect this is the top of its range, because this is going to be the greediest point. So your 3 is actually in between your 1 and 2. So your 2nd test actually goes here, but that's not your front side. That's your front side, backside combination. So this is actually the final test of a 1, 2, where 2 is the greediest level, but there's a 3 that exists between 1 and 2 right here, which is the top of the range that's protecting the number 2. So there's 3 tests. There's backside, a backside, front side, and a front side to the larger piece. But then inside of that, there's 4 tests because there's a backside, front side. It's a linear test on its own time frame. Like here, the daily would have its own linear information, like backside, front side. Once those two are tested, that's a number one to the larger piece. That number one also has a number two, which is here, the greediest level, which would give you the 3 here, which is the top of its range. So you have backside, frontside, and backside, frontside combination level, right? But the backside is the backside is composed of the backside, frontside of the smaller time frame. So there's 4 tests, but there's 2 sections of linear tests, right? So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Those are 2 different tests on 2 different time frames, and they're linear to itself. Once they complete, they make up of a backside and a frontside. So 1 and a 2. But then there's a 3 that exists that protects the greedy level. Hopefully that makes sense. 1, 2, 2, 3. This is 1. This is 2. This is the backside frontside combination.